So we're starting. I'm gonna show you where we're at with the cards. I added the trying to line up for zoos. Oh, maybe I don't have zoos in here. I gotta hope that we have zoos in this deck or in the don't. I can edit a deck. Zoos. Okay, so we have zoos. What Zeus does is he destroys an enemy that's less power than him. So I'm laying out cards that are obviously less strong, and I'm gonna try to do it in time. I'm gonna lay down Zeus right here. Let me see. Gonna see, and then it just destroyed it. So it seems like it's working. Let me see if I don't think I have Zeus on this one. Oh, there. So if I lay down Achilles on this one, and then I do Zeus, it'll destroy him. Oh, it didn't work. Okay, so I gotta check to see why. Seems that it's not. Oh, because this one's power is 8, so it's anyone smaller. So it is working correctly. So because this guy is 8, and so he's stronger, so he's not gonna destroy him. But let's see if we can keep playing, and I'll show you. Oh, we're having problems. Okay, so the deck is not adding itself. It's not adding more players, so there's no more. It's out of index. So I have to fix that, which I'll show you in a second. Um, so I wanted to talk about today. Main thing is um, leveling up as a developer, gaining experience, and then how does that relate to getting a job in the industry or finding jobs in what you want to do, or even like if it's you want to make your dream game. Um, so we and then a little bit showing you a little bit more about these effects and what I did. Um, so we have. Let me look first to show you where the deck is. Um, we have deck. So what happened is, and it'll go nicely with what I want to share with you guys today as we kind of keep polishing this game. I'm not going to be working on this game for a while now. I'm going to go back to my VR game that I want to focus on. And then eventually I might come back to polish things and add more effects, card effects. Um, and maybe I'll use this to demo of how to do a vertical slice of a game. Um, so let's see. So we have. So what happened is I did this scriptable object was being saved, and what was happening is it was being edited at the same time by the hand. So like if I drew 5 cards and I quit the game, those 5 cards would not be in the deck anymore because they were drawn, unless they were added back in the deck. So what I need to do is add. So seeing here cards add. This cards is not the same. It's this list of. We have a game deck now. So these things. So the way we fix it is by changing it right here. At the top card. Game. That we're editing game deck. Okay. Because all we're doing is, if you look at prepare deck for game, we at the start of the game now we copy the deck that we've been editing in the deck editor manager that we've done. So this is only for the cards that you're loading and you're editing as you edit decks. Now this one is when you're in the game. So that's what. So that was wrong. The list wasn't being We weren't adding a card to it, and so now we are. Um, okay, so that's fixed, and I want to talk about how to gain or w- how to level up as a game developer and how to level up in the right field. Because a lot of times, if you think about the RPG mechanics in a game, right? You have dexterity, speed, strength, whatever, right? And you have like Diablo and all these Dungeon and Dragon type games. There's just RPG rules where you have stats that give you experience. You get experience, you get stats, and you those stats affect how you play the game. So in the same way, as a game developer, you are constantly gaining experience, yes in coding, yes in art, but also in the genre that you're working at. And that's one thing that I've learned is that it is very important to work in games that you have a passion for. So let's say you might not want to work on the your passion project as a first game, but you do want to stay within the same realm. If you do want to do VR because you love that, then that's what you should do, and that's what you should build your portfolio around. And um, that's why I did this card game for my friend because he wants to get into card games. And so for me, as you saw, um, this was my first time working on a card game. But because I had experience doing multiplayer mechanics, I was able to hop in and learn a new skill. Um, and so for me, I love VR more so than regular games, but I can still manage to do the same thing because it's all the same, right? Like as long as you know the foundations. But if I'm trying to find a job and I want to work for like Blizzard or Sony, I should be playing and making those types of games specifically for that. If I want to do 2D side scrollers, why am I learning VR, right? It's not going to make sense to try to apply for a job and all I have is experience in VR. So instead of working wherever a job lands, it is better to just work on your portfolio on the side and then have something so that you can get in the field that you like. And it's the same even if you're working on your own. Like if you want to make money, make it with the games that you have a passion for, right? You can do both. Um, so it's the same with this. And as you saw with the experience, it also brings like you understand more about that genre. So you saw, for example, okay, so how does this apply to the game to us, to you, right? You want to make a MMORPG or space shooter or some kind of game, and you have all these ideas, but you don't know how to put it down. So work on one idea at a time or one feature at a time, and learn how to do that. Because just like you saw me, I if I came into this card game, which I did before with my friend, I had issues where like if I tried to learn how to make a card game before when I didn't know anything about multiplayer games and trying to wrap my head around it and do both at the same time was really hard. But now that I come back at it with a different mindset, knowing how to do multiplayer games, I was able to easily show you guys how to make a card game. Like this is the first time that I did this, and you'll notice that there's some things that I want to address about like job interviews and why this is so important. Because yes, experience. A lot of resumes, a lot of jobs talk about, oh well, you need 1 year of experience, this and that, and sometimes you might not have worked at a job, right? And you might be doing this as a hobby, and you might not think it's enough. And so, how do we make that experience available for a portfolio, right? So that you can say, yeah, I have 1 year of experience. Well, is to publish your game, like to actually finish it. That's why I build my community to help people finish games because once you finish games, you can put that in your resume. But if you take 4 years and you spend 2 hours a day for 4 years making a game, that might not be as enticing as hey, I built this game, I did this in a game jam, or I did this on a weekend, and then I polished it over the next 6 months, and I published in a year. That is more appealing, and you can then say you have a year of experience, right? And part of the I cranked this out in a couple months, right? So you can, if you break up things small enough where you have one feature to worry about, you can bust out 2 or 3 games a year, um, or even just two. But you, as long as you're consistent, you can get good at it. And you can continue to do it year after year. And then instead of having one big game that you might not finish in 4 years, you can have 10 games that you finish in 4 years. And that is a much better portfolio. And so what do you do when you're in a interview, right? So like oftentimes you wonder what you're gonna say. If you are doing what I just talked about with the experience, right? Like if you are going to Sony or Blizzard or any company, or if you want to do your own thing, when you make the game, you run into problems like we did, right? In this card game, I ran into problems with the zone, right? The hand, and now we have to do the effects, and we realized there are things that I should have laid out better. For example, with the zones, if I had to do this again, I would have changed how you move between zones, um, and maybe change the dynamics of the zones in the field, and maybe the hands. I would have also done a modular way of previewing cards, so that way the preview of the card is different than the actual placement and movement, so that when I went to the deck manager, it wouldn't be as crazy. But those are things I learned after the fact. And so that's experience gain that if I go work in a card, um, a game developer, a game studio that focuses on card games, I have experience building a car, like drawing and all these things that have to do with deck manager and how to do card effects, zones, how to click and drag, and all the little things that happen with cards. And we still haven't done animations, VFX, and all the stuff. But with the vertical slice, you can do that. You can worry about all the sound effects, the VFX, and figure out how to make that modular. Um, but all this is playable now. I can keep going, do a vertical slice, and I have something that I can do. I can take it, I can show it to people. I can have an APK or uh, an executable file that they can play, and they say, "Hey, put this on. We can play right now," or side load it on your phone. And so that is huge. So that's why I wanted. Let me show you where we were at. Again, I because of the foundation that we laid out before, that I showed you in that long video about movement and RPCs. Now we have enough to figure out the rest of the card movement. So this is the movement of the card. I shifted the +2 card power. So um, I I added the power here and here, so that way when we do the Zeus power, right? Here's the Zeus power ability, destroy enemies with less power. We would do an RPC. The reason for this is because I needed to say, okay, we're gonna add the power before we do the summon ability, right? So you get, if you summon to the field, if the field has a power, right? Like if it gives you +1 power, or if the field gives you some kind of power bonus, that bonus carries on to the summoning effect. Now, if I wanted to change the order of things, I could just do it like this. And now that doesn't happen, right? So that's something that eventually you'll have to, as more abilities come into play, we would do summon abilities, we would do ongoing abilities. And that's why I decided to actually keep the ability types, because maybe we want to have these in a specific order, right? All summon abilities go before movement abilities, and then and so forth. And like field effects go before summoning. and you have to figure out the order of execution so that players know what to expect when they summon, when they kill, because you're gonna have things moving, people killing each other, summoning, and whatnot. And so that's something to think about. But that's game design. Uh, and usually, what happens is if I'm in a team or I'm working with someone, what I do is the moment this comes up, I either write it down somewhere or I turn around or email or chat with the person that I'm working with to say, hey, what do you? So right now I'm coding this, and I realize we didn't talk about the order of execution. Should we add powers when summoning, right? Like, because if a summon ability kills, destroy enemies with less power than me, I would think probably it has to do with like me summoning without like anything else, right? Because then the field will add power to me after the effect, maybe. And so it depends on the game. Right? In this case, I just added it because sometimes there's also field effects at half the power, and so that might be a tactic. You might not want to put a Zeus down until. So yeah, so you usually know the field beforehand. Um. So anyway, so we have that going, and as it's just an RPC call, so I'll show you. So we have the card power and is first player card. So we then say, okay, we're gonna kill the enemy with the lower power. So what happens is the network field has both zones, right? It has the cards. So we have player 2 cards. So if it's the first player, Zeus, right? If Zeus spawns, then he's trying to kill player 2 cards. So we go through those cards and we say, okay, this is the card's power for the player 2. Is this less than Zeus card? If it's equal, it's not going to do anything either. Um, and then if it is less than, so we don't even care what the order is. If we wanted to change the order, we might place a different list and sort it by order. So we already added them in order and we shuffle them again. So I think if we change the list type to be something else, we would not do the for each, and we would do the for from 0 to 1 or from the length to 0. And we can do that. But for now, I just said, okay, we just take whatever comes first. And the moment we find something, we remove it, despawn it, check power again, and then shuffle the cards. And that all happens. We know that works because we've done it before when we remove the field. So the same thing here, but this time with player 1 cards. Because if it's not the first player, it's the second player. And that's all we do. That's it. It works. We did all the heavy lifting early on with all the other lessons. We have this. I started working on this, but then I decided not to. I think it could work because all the cards have their effect. But this one it checks. Okay, we're gonna revive people that die. So this one is from Hades. So Hades will revive. If it's the first player, it would say, okay, do we have enough cards in the zone? And if the card count is equal to or greater than the max amount, we're not going to do anything because the zone is full. But if it's not full, we're just going to spawn this. And we're going to use the same method we used before. So this method is already being used. So by the zones. So see, so we have the zones is already spawning card. And we're just reusing that. Which is nice because then we don't have to do anything. All we're doing is calling the same thing and saying, okay, this is the player zone and the next card location. This one, we look back, it gives me the current slot that's available in the zone and it ups the count because it's assuming we're going to use it. And so this is after all the other checks. So if we look back here, ally death. Remember we set this up before and I never finished it. So what happens is, do we have the ability, right? So someone dies and it tells me, hey, someone died. If I have this ability to do something about it, I will revive players here. And what does here mean? Well, in this network field where I'm at, and this RPC goes from everyone to the state authority. So it doesn't matter who calls it, player one or player two. That's why we always have this boolean to check who is the one calling this effect. Is it player one or is it player two? And so that's, for me, it has been easier to do than to try to figure out who is who, especially with the state authority and who owns what. I just say network fields is always owned by the first player. He has authority, so that's what we're going to do. So we're going to give whoever has authority is going to make it happen. Um, and so that's worked out really nice. So it just works. So this is what happens is when you lay out the foundation for something and you do things right, uh, things start fitting into place, and it feels nice because now I can just spend time working on one effect at a time, testing it, adding it, and then it's just a matter of putting time, right? It's just now it's a work question. It's like, how long will it take us to finish the game? Okay, we need to do the vertical slides, we need to do all the polish, but once that's done, it's just a matter. Okay, in 40 hours we can get one deck. Okay, in the next, it takes us a week to create a full deck of cards with all the effects. Okay, that's what it cost, right? And that is nice because we could just keep doing that and adding decks and whatnot. Um, and I love it. And that's what I'm trying to share and teach on this YouTube channel, how to finish games and how to structure things so that you can have fun leveling up as a game developer, because you're making games, so make the games that you love doing and have fun doing it, because it should be fun. And I'm going to keep making videos. If you have any questions, let me know. I'm always here to help make games fun and get them done.